Before we start, today's video is sponsored by Walt's Comic Shop. Are you looking for English language manga in the EU? Then Walt's Comic Shop is your place to go. They have thousands of manga currently in stock with an inventory that's growing daily. Walt's offers low shipping prices for any EU country with bulletproof packaging and speedy customer support. When you enter the code Colleen's Manga Rex at checkout, you'll get free shipping on your first order of €40. You can get all kinds of your favorite shoujo, josei, BL, or yuri series at waltzcomicshop.com, your #1 source for English language manga in Europe. Thanks for watching, let's get into the video.
Today's the day.
Whoa!
You slept in for 3 months and still haven't made the annual shoujo anime video yet.
You mean I didn't save the world? And I haven't made a video for 3 whole months?
Don't worry about that, I took over. No one even noticed the difference, and I don't know how because we look nothing alike.
Right?
Right? We look nothing alike. Okay, now you need to hurry up, get your ass out there. Don't worry, I already got a script ready for you. Just go knock 'em dead, sport.
Ancestors protect me, may they protect you.
Go get 'em, sport.
They grow up so fast.
Let's go. Whew. Oh, it's a good thing I wake up every morning looking perfect and handsome. Horimiya, Apothecary Diaries, Fragrant Flower, Comey Can't Communicate, and Skippin' Loafer. Do you know what these series have in common? No, it's not the female characters. No, it's not that they have romance in them. That's right! The answer is that these are all anime series that aren't shoujo, but people call shoujo anyway. In fact, shonen, seinen, shonen, shonen, seinen. Ever since 2020, when anime shot up in popularity, people calling non-shoujo anime shoujo has become a common occurrence. Battle action shonens have become more popular than ever, and rom-coms have been absolutely dominating since My Dress-Up Darling and Horimiya became huge hits. In the meantime though, shoujo manga has been adapted into anime at scarcer and scarcer rates, meaning less people than ever have seen shoujo anime adaptations outside of formerly popular ones from the 90s or 2000s. And at the same time, as more people than ever have started calling non-shoujo anime shoujo, it's been harder than ever for people like me to get people to understand what shoujo even is. Most couldn't tell you about the latest ones coming out right now, but simultaneously, they'll call any vaguely woman-friendly show as a shoujo, which then dominates the entire conversation around these anime, thus pushing the engagement for the few actual shoujo anime adaptations we have gotten from being in the spotlight. It's not like I think that this is a completely new phenomenon or anything. In the past, people have thought Inuyasha or School Rumble were shoujo, even though they're both shonen. The romance genre has always been viewed as a uniquely feminine genre. However, the problem now is that shoujo has just been getting the short end of the stick since the 2000s, that this has become an even more common occurrence with how little there actually is out there. And if you look around online, a lot of people might have you believing that this is a good thing. That demographics are just inherently sexist and that shoujo is a thing of the past. That we can just erase these labels because there's no difference between them now anyway. Girls enjoy romance and boys enjoy shonen romance too. Sexism has been solved, hallelujah. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic right now. This is most definitely not the case that we have just somehow cured sexism in the manga and anime industry, when in fact we have been sliding further and further into erasing media targeted towards girls almost entirely. This only gets worse when sentiments about demographics are largely upheld by stereotypes based on gender. So, following the tradition of my yearly shoujo anime videos, this time around, I want to talk about the fan and community aspect of the decline of shoujo anime. Previously, we've talked about pre- and post-production of anime, how capitalism and sexism have worked together to create the situation that shoujo is in now, and the myth that girls just don't watch anime. But today is a call to action on the fan side, talking all about how claiming your favorite shonen or seinen series is actually shoujo or shoujo coded or forced to shonen or whatever new term Twitter has invented only hurts the growth of shoujo as a whole. Before we start, I'm not spending all my time explaining what shoujo is or how demographics work. Time is money, and this bitch is going broke. I have to give basic info every time, and I'm tired of it. If you're coming to this video with no knowledge on the topic at hand, then I will direct your attention to 2 other videos of mine that will explain that better in detail. Once you finish those and have a solid base of understanding, you can come back here. When I used to have a TikTok, there used to be a new video every day of someone calling a shonen series a shoujo. Often, when they were corrected, they would scoff and say, well, who cares? It's a shoujo to me. I vividly remember this being the case with a person who was claiming that Horimiya was a shoujo just based on their own vibe and opinion. They didn't actually care what was factually correct or incorrect. Don't worry though, I know this isn't the case for everyone. In fact, I'm sure a lot of you out there just don't know the demographic or where something comes from, and when corrected, you are completely normal about it. This isn't about you guys. This is about the people who refuse to give up a term that they are using incorrectly. In that case, referring to any non-shoujo series as a shoujo is a detriment to the demographic as a whole. It not only erases what shoujo is and who it's marketed for, but also in the long term shows that there's no desire from the general public for these types of series at all. For the last 20 years now, shoujo manga magazines and their physical sales have been on a decline. This is due to a multitude of reasons. Yes, magazines and physical media have been on a general decline since the internet's genesis. But shoujo losing readers has also been due in large part to the fact that there's just no media mix for it lately. The decline of shoujo anime is a direct cause for the decline of shoujo manga sales. If you stop promoting your manga through the media mix or through marketing, of course, you're going to see a decline in sales overall. The decline in shoujo manga sales has actually been discussed quite a bit lately in Japan. I'm not the lone American that's making a big stink out of something that no one else cares about. In fact, if you look at an article on Real Sound, many of the things that I have said in past videos were reiterated in this article by an actual shoujo editor. One example being that they also say that shoujo manga sales declining is a byproduct of less shoujo anime adaptations since the early 2000s, stating that the lack of shoujo anime adaptations has actually been funneling girls elsewhere in the meantime. Specifically, shonen and seinen rom-coms like My Dress-Up Darling or moe 4-coma style series like Bocchi the Rock. This is because these series have been getting so much different merchandise as well as global marketing pushes too. In contrast to that, it's hard to even find the first volume of a shoujo manga in Japan because there has been a limited number of printed copies just for the first volume so they can cut costs, making it pretty apparent how these different target demographics are treated. As we talked about in the last episode of this shoujo anime video series, the producers and publishers who make these shoujo anime also play a large part in its erasure. Those who are involved in the anime industry were and are fans of the manga that they're animating. In some cases, like for Fragrant Flower, the producers had mentioned that they were all reading Shonen Magazine Pocket, which is where the manga was published. So they knew about this series before it had even gotten to be an anime. You also had the producers of Skip and Loafer who absolutely loved the manga and were instrumental on getting it an anime adaptation. But while these producers might say, oh, these are very shoujo-coded series, oftentimes producers don't even read shoujo or know what's popular at the moment. This is mostly because the anime industry is dominated by men, like most other industries. Don't believe me? Well, that article from Real Sound affirms this too. Since anime producers don't really read shoujo manga, they often don't even know it exists, and it doesn't often come up for consideration for anime adaptations. This all culminates in essentially replacing shoujo anime with non-shoujo but maybe woman-friendly adaptations. It's not necessarily an either-or situation. I don't think that the anime adaptation of Skip and Loafer took away a budget from an actual shoujo adaptation to get made or anything, but I do believe it shows producers and publishers that they can make just as much money, if not more so, by putting focus on male demographic series. And it only shows these companies that they're right to do it too when fans contribute. Calling Apothecary Diaries the best recent shoujo anime, or saying, oh, finally, Fragrant Flower is here and it breaks all the stereotypes of shoujo, only ends up telling them they don't have to pay attention to shoujo. Actual shoujo aren't good enough anyway, and they can easily be replaced without anyone knowing the difference. These non-shoujo series being called shoujo online often serves a misogynistic narrative. The outdated idea that girls can only enjoy romance and boys could never relate to a female lead like Mao Mao or Frieren. It can even be used as a way to talk down on the shoujo demographic as a whole. One such case of this was with an anonymous post that went viral in Japan back in January, titled, "The Lamentation of a Female Writer. Why wasn't Oshinoko born in a shoujo manga magazine?" A post that somehow combined all the forces of stereotyping, misogyny, and stubborn refusal to make one of the worst takes I have ever had to read. All because they just liked Oshinoko a lot. The gist of this post goes like this. The author views Oshinoko as the pinnacle of manga. The Mount Kilimanjaro of fiction, if you will. She describes it as being about a chivalrous boy who rescues a girl and beats the bad guy that portrays the fragile moments of childhood. This is pretty much all she gives as an argument for Oshinoko being a shoujo, going on to say that no one actually reads shoujo anymore anyway because it's either graphic erotic sex scenes or it's uncreative, boring romance. For shonen though, she believes the genre variety has completely stolen the audience away from shoujo and made it obsolete. Funny enough, this is where her argument completely falls apart and where it becomes pretty clear that these stereotypes are plain lazy, only serving to highlight how it's not shoujo's fault that you aren't paying attention to it. The entire post basically just hinges on the fact that shoujo is all smutty now. A stereotype that hasn't held weight since the early 2000s when the Harmful Books Act was put into place for shoujo magazines and publishers started to self-censor. Not to mention the fact that really the only magazine this would apply to is Shokomi, which has since been toned down drastically. This writer of the post, who claims to be an industry person, clearly doesn't even know the trends of shoujo manga right now, or what would even make something a shoujo manga. So why should we trust that she would know that Oshinoko should have been in a shoujo manga at one point? Because I sure as hell wouldn't believe it from the few chapters of this manga I've read. It's basically Detective Conan for idols. In this anonymous post comments though, there were other people agreeing with the writer, showing me even more how out of touch a lot of people are about shoujo manga. They pointed to series like Frieren or Komi or even Slayer, saying that all of them should have been shoujo. I even found a post from an established seinen mangaka saying that Demon Slayer was a shoujo and he thought it was inspired by Tenshi Nanka Janai by Ai Yazawa. While I can't say that your opinion is stupid, I can wholeheartedly disagree with it. All the ones I just listed are clearly shonen, and it only takes reading shoujo to understand that. It really just comes from a deep-seated stereotype held by manga readers who haven't picked up a shoujo series since Kimi ni Todoke. My own response to this author's post would be this. Why don't you check out Kageki Shoujo? Why don't you check out Girl Crush? Hell, you can even check out Not Your Idol, which is running right now in Ribbon magazine that is very similar to Oshi no Ko. You haven't heard of these series because it is very clear to me that people who say a non-shoujo is a shoujo just don't keep up or care about shoujo actually. Your post makes that extremely apparent with the fact that you even say people would tell you to go look for shoujo if you're gonna complain that much. And you said, oh, but did they get sales? Were they popular? No, so who cares? It just shows a lack of effort on the part of people who make claims like this to actually engage with the thing that they are claiming it is. An actual shoujo mangaka, the author of Secret Notes of Lady Kanako, responded to this post saying basically the same thing. Shoujo conversations by industry people who don't really follow it don't make sense because half the time they are making generalizations about a demographic based on something they read in their childhood. The writer of this anonymous post also says at one point that Oshi no Ko was put into the media mix really quickly, which leads to my next argument. The reason these shoujo-looking shonen get anime adaptations or a fandom in the first place is specifically because they aren't shoujo. Oshi no Ko was immediately made into an anime and pushed by a marketing team specifically because it targeted a male audience. It got a huge budget, a 1-hour opening episode, and a publisher who had faith in it selling because its readers at the time were primarily not girls. Had Oshi no Ko been published in a shoujo manga magazine, there would not be an anime or a fandom to speak of. Even the best-selling shoujo manga right now, Honey Lemon Soda, took 10 years until it got adapted. We've seen this side of the industry talked about before by a current editor at Betsufre. She too states that the industry is dominated by men who don't pay attention to shoujo. Therefore, the proper resources and marketing don't get funneled into those types of series. Another editor over at Betsuma literally had to put together a whole IP agency just for Betsuma manga to have any sort of media mix and fix that problem. He even talked about the reason he did this is because shoujo was losing touch points since it's so easy to market fantasy battle genre overseas. If you put those statements from editors next to a statement from the editor of Monthly Afternoon, which is the seinen magazine that Skip and Loafer comes from, you can see the huge difference between them. Monthly Afternoon never passes up on an inquiry about an adaptation, and if you look at their track list, they had 6 in one season. It's not because shoujo aren't good or lack originality or any of those excuses like that. It is just because they are shoujo manga that they are either consciously or unconsciously passed up on by people in this industry. This is how you get anime studios like Cloverworks, known for their beautiful animation and rom-coms, having never touched a shoujo anime adaptation in their 6 years as a studio. For anyone not familiar with them, Cloverworks is the studio that brought you Horimiya, My Dress-Up Darling, Fragrant Flower, and many other mislabeled shoujo series. It is clear to me with how often these series get mislabeled that Cloverworks takes a heavy inspiration from the shoujo manga art style. For most of these series, if you looked at their source material, they would not be as bubbly and sparkly and full of screen tones as their anime counterparts are. Their manga largely look like how I would expect a shonen and seinen manga to look like. But even with using a visual language derived from shoujo, Cloverworks has yet to touch one. Sure, it may not be entirely their fault. Maybe they were never approached by a publisher asking them to pick up a shoujo anime adaptation. But when you look at the manga editor for Fragrant Flower having said that the anime was already in the works with Cloverworks before he even had to ask, you can see the difference. And just to hammer this point home, there's another animation studio that's a little more established, Wit Studio, that hasn't touched a shoujo anime either. They're most known for their shoujo coded, very loosely on that one by the way, Spy Family and Ancient Magus Bride. This studio was created 13 years ago, and only now will they be adapting a shoujo manga, Agents of the Four Seasons. The only catch about that though is that this shoujo manga is actually a light novel adaptation from the author of Violet Evergarden. So whether or not this was adapted because of interest in the shoujo manga adaptation, or just because this is from the Violet Evergarden author is your guess to make. One thing I see time and again from people who do not care that they're mislabeling a shonen or a seinen series is the argument, why should I care? Or more generally, why does it matter? If you still have women watching or reading a male-targeted series, then it should basically be a shoujo. But it's incorrect to think that erasing shoujo as a demographic, even on the fan side, won't have corporate consequences in the long run. Wit studio owner George Wada said in an interview that they are constantly considering a global audience with the popularity of streamers like Crunchyroll, Netflix, Hulu, and Disney+. Because all of those play a huge part in distribution now. With that, many streamers and publishers have also been mislabeling their series on their platforms for manga or anime, usually leaning into the perpetuation of stereotypes on shoujo that it's romance only or it's ones with female leads in them. Sometimes fans will even use these mislabelings as a gotcha when they're corrected. See, Skip and Loafer is labeled as shoujo on Crunchyroll, or see, look, K-Manga has Fragrant Flower under the shoujo tag. So why do you shoujo fans have to be so uptight about it? Corporations clearly don't care, and I lick their boots. It doesn't prove anything other than the fact that these companies want clicks. They want hits. They want people to find the things online. It's a case of what my friend Fatima has dubbed demographic gerrymandering, one of my favorite phrases they have ever come up with. Demographic gerrymandering is when a company, and in this case we are specifically going to say a company in Japan, will label an anime or manga differently online than what they are anywhere else. For example, maybe Fragrant Flower is going to be on the shonen manga shelf with all the other Kodansha manga in that same imprint. So you're gonna walk into the store, you're gonna know what imprint it's from, you're gonna go straight to the shonen manga section, find that imprint, you're gonna pick out Fragrant Flower. But say when you look on eBook Japan or Rakuten, that might not be the case. They may have changed that label to shoujo now. This is because bookstores have had labeling and organizing that is uniform within most bookstores for decades now, and if you're looking for certain media, you know where to look. However, online, it's the wild, wild west, baby. Companies don't need to worry about labeling things correctly because they just need the clicks. They need people to purchase and buy things. And if they notice a series might be getting more hits whenever its label was changed, then you know what? So be it. It's gonna make them money. This trickles down to shoujo series getting pushed out even further from recognition or popularity to make way for these gerrymandered non-shoujo. I can list so many recent examples of just this happening. One time, Crunchyroll responded to a post from Corey King who specifically was asking for shoujo recommendations, and they recommended Apothecary Diaries. This is because the anime is labeled as a shoujo on their website, so whoever the marketing, the social media person was that day recommending it was probably just pulling it straight from the site. Another example is when Kodansha was at a manga panel, and one of their big highlights, they said, oh, we're so excited for this new shoujo series that's getting an anime. It's called Fragrant Flower, and it's doing super well for us. Another shonen, gerrymandered as a shoujo, and taking away the highlight or spotlight from a shoujo manga. Hell, even a few years back now, we had a Jump Plus title literally taking the spot of a shoujo manga in the Shoujo Beat imprint when Romantic Killer was put there. I'm getting heated. I'm gonna calm down and channel Angela.
That's unfair. She made those. I need to calm down.
Okay, we're back. Calling non-shoujo series shoujo does have consequences. It does matter. Back in 2022, Crunchyroll held a business seminar with Japanese companies. In this, they stated that due to a lack of relevant content, shoujo, josei, and BL anime tend to overperform and have great growth. This statement will mean absolutely nothing, though, if they just have the idea that shoujo is just any series that has romance in it. That could be exactly what they take from that statement, though, considering the very next thing they say is that Male-targeted rom-coms are also overperforming and doing incredibly well in any given season. These companies will just think that anything is shoujo as long as an even number of girls also watch it. But we do know that girls usually give a chance to anything that isn't specifically made towards them, while the opposite isn't usually true. Girls are often conditioned through childhood to read or watch anything, because otherwise they wouldn't have anything to watch. We've also seen that American companies do hold production power, not just because they are direct lines of contact between these corporations, but also with the fact that they can push certain anime titles. A large reason we got season 2 of Kakuryu, Bed and Breakfast for Spirits, is because Crunchyroll saw that this series was performing very well and made their case for it. They saw people asking for this anime and did their best to make them happen. As fans, refusing to actually label things correctly has consequences. Those consequences directly affect a demographic of manga that has been facing criticism since its inception in the 50s and 60s. It pushes shoujo out of the limelight, makes people look down on it as a form of art, and tosses it aside to make way for more masculine-friendly stories. Fandom holds a lot of power in this community, and that's because anime and manga companies are very heavily tied to fandom. If you don't care about it, these companies won't either. So, to me, there is no point in calling a shonen or seinen series shoujo coded. There's no point in saying that they were forced to shonen. That is, unless you are doing so directly to serve your own ego, that anything you like is directly made for you. If you like Haikyuu, then yeah, it has to be a shoujo because you're a girl and it can't be a shonen. Or on the other side, if you don't like Haikyuu, it's because of all those icky girl shippers, so that can only mean it's a shoujo. Truly, neither of these ways of thinking makes sense to me, but it is a pervasive idea. Yes, I know, it makes me a stick-in-the-mud demographic gremlin who's annoying and cares way too much about labels. But I'd rather care than pretend these things don't matter. Community has impact, and the less you care, the less a company's gonna care too. In the long run, mislabeling any male-targeted series as being a shoujo only serves to show that shoujo is unnecessary. A series made for men is just as fine and no one will tell the difference. But this has only become true with shoujo successfully vanishing, in part due to the readers' and watchers' influence, since you can't know the difference if you can't even watch a shoujo now. This is why I make my Shonen Jump to Shoujo series on here. Shoujo and shonen do have a lot of genre crossover. There are so many shoujo series that are similar to your favorite shonen or seinen. However, instead of actually looking into a shoujo series or seeing if there's anything new you might want to try out, people would rather not be challenged or find out that they just had the wrong perception the whole time. How about instead of the next time you want to call Apothecary Diaries shoujo coded, you go pick up Eccentric Doctor of the Moonflower Kingdom, an actual shoujo series. Go find out how the different manga magazines they come from directly influence its art style, its narrative, or its storytelling. Then maybe you could at least go off something other than just vibes in a female-led series. For all my nagging though, it would be silly if I didn't actually give you guys shoujo anime that are coming soon that you can check out. You can't yell at people to change their attitudes and not give them a place to start. So, as always with these decline of shoujo anime videos, we're going to end by giving you guys a bunch of shoujo and josei anime that are upcoming that I'm really excited for. Unlike years prior with these shoujo anime videos, I actually have a lot to cover this time around because despite a lot of people saying that oh, shonen or seinen series is a shoujo, we do have a lot of shoujo coming out soon. Especially for this October where we have 4 whole shoujo anime adaptations in one season. This is a huge deal because in the past 8 years, other than like villainess or isekai series, we've at the most gotten like 2 in one season. Now, I will say, not everything in this fall season is going to appeal to people. I don't expect everyone to have their first shoujo anime they check out be a furry romance. And that's exactly what the anime With You, Our Love Will Make It Through is. It's a series that, even as a furry monster romance lover like myself, I raised an eyebrow at. But when I ended up reading the manga, I really ended up liking it. If you're a fan of the relationship in Beastars, then you're really gonna want to check this one out. I think it's got a similar theme to it in the discrimination. Not to mention, the anime adaptation looks so pretty. It's actually hilarious to me that one of the best looking shoujo anime we've gotten in a while is the furry romance. The second anime airing in the fall season is The Dark History of the Reincarnated Villainess, which I'm sure you guys can guess is a villainess isekai series. This is actually one I talked about in the last shoujo anime video I did. It was literally just announced when I was making that video, which is why I briefly mentioned it. But now we finally have the premiere on the way. While this one doesn't look as nice as the furry romance series, I do have very high expectations for it because the manga is pretty funny and the premise itself is a really good gag. This girl gets isekai'd into her own fan fiction that she wrote as a teenager. I don't typically like isekai or villainess series, but I like this one a lot. However, the two that I'm most excited for in the fall season is A Star Brighter Than the Sun and Mechanical Marie. The first is a childhood friends to lovers romance series by the author of My Love Story. This is such an adorably sweet series, and I have been obsessed with it since it first came out in English. It's a really beautiful portrayal of teen crushes and also just the self-doubt you have in that period of your life. On the other hand, Mechanical Marie is a slapstick rom-com series about a stone-faced girl who has to pretend to be a robot maid for the human-phobic heir of a conglomerate family. I love this series so much. It is so funny, and I'm so excited to see how this one gets animated. I think anyone who is a Spy Family fan would probably find similarities in this series, and I would definitely recommend, if you like Spy Family, to check this one out. And that's not all! The fall season isn't the only thing we have to look forward to. We have an incredibly impressive lineup going into the winter season as well. I'm drowning in shoujo, I don't know what to do about it. We have two Hanato Yume manga getting anime adaptations in 2026. The first being the idol rom-com Timon's B-side, and the second being the gender-bender slice of life series Hanakimi. That one has no official air date yet, but I did see that Anime NYC is going to be premiering the first episode of Hanakimi, and I'm really hoping I can get into it when I go there. I will update you guys if that happens. There's two other shoujo anime that will be airing in the winter season of 2026 as well, Champignon Witch and In the Clear Moonlit Dusk. The first is a witchy fantasy series that leans into mystery and slice of life elements, whereas the second is going to be a bit more of your standard romance drama, although the main character, Yoi, is very handsome, and I love her. As for josei anime, we do have a few that are going to be coming up soon, but none of them have specific air dates yet, so I'm not really sure when. Firstly is Witch's Life in Mongol, which is going to be animated by Science Saru, and I am so excited to see what they do with this series. Science Saru is obviously known for like Dandadan and the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World anime, so I'm very excited to see what they do with Tomato Soup's eclectic style and how they animate all the beautiful Persian culture and views of the beginning of the series. After that, you have Ikoku Nikki, which I also talked about in the last shoujo anime video, but it was only rumored at that point, it was not confirmed. But now we have actual confirmation, and oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful and touching story. I will highly recommend this one for literally everyone. I love Ikoku Nikki. It is one of my favorite manga series. And the last of these josei anime series is Kirio Fan Club, which is not as beautiful and touching, but is just an extremely slapstick comedy series about two boy-obsessed girls who are constantly talking about poops and farts. Side note, I just want to say, be sure to check out some of the Yuri anime coming out too, like This Monster Wants to Eat Me, or Moon on a Rainy Night, or obviously the Green Yuri anime adaptation too. At the end of the day, supporting shoujo, if that's what you actually care about, means actually supporting shoujo. Not turning everything you personally like into something shoujo coded, or explaining in great detail how your favorite shonen series is actually a shoujo. Series that do not come from shoujo magazines are not going to actually support the declining sales of shoujo magazines if you call them that. In fact, it will actively work against helping boost shoujo manga sales because people are just going to go to the magazine that's got the shoujo-coded male-targeted work in it. It also doesn't make producers care about shoujo by calling Fragrant Flower one. Neither does it give a spotlight to lesser-known but equally as good shoujo stories too. The only thing these companies will end up seeing is that male-targeted series are for a general audience. They're for everyone. They're universal. But shoujo is niche. A concept I talked about in my demographics video. This is why we need to stop calling non-shoujo anime shoujo. If you care about shoujo anime, if you care about shoujo manga, it means supporting the ones that are being released. It means showing more of your interest in these types of series to companies, and actually talking about them online as well. Unfortunately, we can't just sit around and twiddle our thumbs hoping things will change, as shoujo has been constantly in danger for years now. So even if I haven't changed your mind and maybe you still think I'm a little meanie who just doesn't let people have fun, I hope you'll at least check out these shoujo anime that I had just recommended, because the fate of shoujo anime and shoujo manga lasting in this industry rests in the popularity that it will find through its media mix and possibly getting its sales to go back on the rise.